We all know that new launches are selling very well, but we also know that prices are steadily increasing. Then have you ever wondered, how does someone actually finance a new launch property? So in today's video, I'm going to go through everything about this. I'm going to go through the down payment. I'm going to go through how the monthly commitment is going to be for a new launch purchase. So if you are someone who is looking to buy a new launch property, I will be sharing 3 different price ranges where you can consider who are the people who can consider, who are the people in a position who maybe easily can afford these properties. Or if let's say you want to plan to buy a new launch in the future, this is something that you can watch and study so you can plan better in the future. Hi everyone, I'm Nicholas. If you're new to this channel, I do mainly real estate content. I share my personal journey, my whole sale and buy journey, and I like to share all these real estate insights to my subscribers. So if this is something that you're interested to find out more, please hit the subscribe button. It will really help me grow. So let's go to today's video. I'm just going to go straight into the numbers. So in today's market, if you want to buy a decent new launch, 1.7 million is actually a good starting point. So how does one finance a 1.7 million property? So I'm going to break it down everything. Firstly, who are the people who can consider this budget? So for example, I'm giving you an example. If let's say you are a young couple, both below 35 years old, because this has got to do with your loan tenure. Let's say you're a high income earner because likely your income is above average, that's why you're considering a new launch. Assuming your combined income is about $16,000, maybe you're at a crossroads. Should I go for an EC or should I go for a new launch? And let's see what's the difference in the down payment and the financing. For down payment, it's about $480,000 to finance a $1.7 million property. Then I assume that you have already worked for quite a few years. Your CPF OA has already accumulated about $120,000 each. Then actually your total cash outlay for 2 people is about $240,000 together. So maybe each person needs to come out $120,000, and I think that is quite achievable. Of course, if let's say you are a single person, but your income is also about $16,000, you can also consider this price range because the down payment will be the same, except your OA may be a bit more lacking. Maybe you are between $120,000 to $180,000. Then the rest has to be cash because the down payment figure is still $480,000. But what I want to bring your attention to is, let's say you can afford the down payment, then the monthly payment will be something that you will be pleasantly surprised, because a lot of people I talk to, the main hurdle is definitely the down payment. Especially if this is your first property, the down payment is something like, wow, Nick, how does someone actually afford this? This is a lot of money. I really do have a lot of money, and this deters a lot of people. I do understand. I do think that it's not an easy figure to come up with, but let's say you are in a privileged position, you are able to come up with these funds maybe due to family help, or really you are in a high earning job and you save very prudently, your spending habits is very good, and you are in a position to consider this. Then let me share with you the next step, which is the financing. So for new launches, payments are paid progressively. When a developer has achieved certain building milestone, like for example, if the foundation is done, they'll call for the next 10%. When the framework is done, they'll call for next 10%. When the walls, the windows, so on and so forth, then they will call for next payment. As we know, down payment is usually 25%, which means the maximum loan you can take is 75%. So after the down payment of 25%, the 75% loan will be handled by the bank. And each time when the developer calls for a milestone payment, they'll notify your lawyer will then notify the bank, and bank will then disperse the respective milestone payment. So for example, if it's a 10% payment, a 10% of let's say a 2 million property will be $200,000. $200,000 will then be dispersed to the developer, and then let's say you are getting a full 30 years loan. That $200,000 will then be divided by the whole 30 years loan tenure. And that's why we can see over here, the figures are very palatable. So there are a lot of columns over here, right? So let me just show you. You just need to look over at this side. So firstly, foundation, we're going to see actually no monthly. I think the key thing we want to highlight is what is the monthly cash top up, because most people will be working with CPF monthly contribution. So actually CPF will also be accumulating as you are waiting for the property to be completed. And in fact, as you are waiting before the foundation, every month collectively between the couple, you are saving $3,004 in your CPF OA. Then as the milestones continue, then of course the monthly installment does increase. So you see it starts from 800 plus until 1000 plus. Only when you collect your keys, there's a sharper increase at about 3003. This is for a $1.7 million property purchase. So at this juncture, you can collect your keys. The full loan disbursement is also not released yet, because at this point, developer has only asked for 85% of the whole purchase price. The last 15% is usually called 6 months to 1 year after TOP phase. But at this juncture, you can either choose to move in or you can choose to rent out already. And that's another perks of buying a new launch. But the key thing I want to drive here is that because as you wait for your 3-4 years before you collect your keys, every month, as long as you are employed, you contribute to your CPF OA, your employer contributes to your CPF OA, you are actually saving money in your CPF OA. And then even if the monthly installment were to increase over here, as we see, it will continue to deduct from your CPF OA, even if, let's see, at 4,001, this is 6 months to 1 year after TOP, and that's when the developer collect the last payment. This is the only point that they are going to draw excess money from your CPF savings. But at this juncture, you still don't need to give any monthly cash top up, simply because of this surplus that you have accumulated over these 3-4 years. And this is very important because yes, it's very difficult to finance the down payment, but let's say you can finance it the next 3-4 years at this price point, assuming you are this profile where you're earning $16,000, you're below 35 years old, you don't have to pay any cash top up even up to the 4th year mark at the CSC. Of course, thereafter, when your CPF OA has been used up, then yes, you will need to top up using cash. But for the first 4 years, as we see down here, you don't need to pay any cash. And that is something that I want to drive at that a lot of people do not know. And they have this misconception that this is so expensive. After down payment, I'm going to eat grass. I'm going to be so fearful. What if I lose my job, everything? But of course, we need to sit down and also plan your rainy days funds. Make sure that you have at least 6 months to 1 year of expenses secure. But let's say that is being settled. You have set aside savings for that. This is something that I think you can take comfort with because you don't need to take out from your own savings to pay. And during the first 4 years, you will be rest assured that it's going to be an easier route after the down payment that is being paid. So this is, in a nutshell, the 1.7 million structure. If you are someone in this category, then I think you can definitely consider financing a $1.7 million new launch. So the next question is, what can you buy at this price range? So one of the suggestions I have here is Bloomsbury, 2-bedroom. This is in the rest of Central Region, RCR, in a 1 North area. 1.7 million, you can buy a 2-bed, 2-bath, and this is a pretty decent layout because at 678 square feet, you have windows in the bathrooms, something that I really like because I also stayed in a 2-bedroom before, and both of the bedrooms are pretty good size. You can put your queen size bed, definitely. So I do think that this is a very strong consideration because this is the RCR area, and 1 North is in an area with very strong rental yield. So even if you don't want to buy for own stay, you want to buy for investment, after keys collection, you can rent out. The profile of the people renting from you will be quite solid because of the strong tenant notes around the area. Or if you want to stay, it's something that is quite convenient. Granted, there's no MRT, but it's still in the city fringe area. So this is something you can consider if you are looking for a 2-bedroom in the somewhat convenient location. If not, you want to buy something bigger, you don't mind the location, you can consider Canberra Crescent residence at this juncture. A 3-bedroom is slightly above 1.7 million. There is something cheaper than this price range, which is 3-bedroom, but I didn't quite like the layout, so I never used that as comparison. For me, a 3-bedroom, I definitely want the windows in the kitchen, windows in the bathroom, and these are all your corner units. And the plus point is that there is a study over here, so this is a very decent layout. I think any HDB upgraders in the future who want to upgrade to a condo will definitely be comfortable with this layout. Let's say you are someone who is just starting out, you want to buy your first property, but you don't want to shortchange yourself in terms of size. This is something I would say quite equivalent to a 4-room flat HDB in terms of size. This is something that you can stay for a long time and it's quite solid as long as you don't mind the location. But let's say you want to buy this as an investment, this is also quite solid because there is a lot of BTO estates around there. Granted, a lot of condos, but I do think that there's also a lot of room for appreciation because of the price point that we're seeing down here. Then the next price range, $2.5 million. Now you're getting higher. How are you going to afford? who are the people who can afford this? Let's deep dive for this. So firstly, how do we afford? Who are the people that can consider this $2.5 million range? Firstly, I'm still assuming if let's say you are someone, if you are buying your first property and you are in this crossroad where you can consider 2.5 million, congratulations, you're in a very, very high income range. Assuming you are below 35 years old, combined income $18,000, you and your partner, the down payment required for $2.5 million is about $720,000. Assuming each person has about $150,000 in CPF OA, the total cash outlay requires will be $420,000. Now, most people may not have this kind of money sitting in the bank or in the stocks portfolio at this juncture, but let's discuss who are the people that we looking at this price point. I'm just going to go through in terms of financing first. Assuming the down payment is something that you can afford, then how are the financing going to be? So similarly as the $1.7 million range, we are going to follow a progressive payment structure. At the start, at the foundation stage, once again, you have your monthly CPF OA surplus because your combined savings in the CPF OA, the contribution between you and the employer is going to be higher than what you need to pay the developer for your house. So that's why you got surplus into your CPF OA. As the payment milestones continue to progress, developers charge you more money, banks charge you higher installments, that's when your surplus starts to decrease. Only when you collect your keys, then we see that, oh, there is a sharper jump in terms of your mortgage. But at this juncture, not to worry because you have all the surplus that you have saved. Now you're just withdrawing money from your savings. You still don't need to pay any cash top up at this juncture, even after you've collected keys. Once again, at the 6 months to 1 year mark, granted, your monthly mortgage has increased sharply. The last 15% has been paid, now is about $6,000. Your OA is still $3,400 combined together, but the monthly cash top up for the next 1 year, I believe, will still be $0 because you are just withdrawing CPF OA from your existing CPF funds that you have saved up. So once again, this is very similar to the $1.7 million case study where it actually is not that difficult moving forward as long as we can afford a down payment. So this is something for thought. Of course, down payment is not easy, but now let me show you who are the people that can consider this price range. First group of people, the BTO upgraders. Nowadays, it's very common to see BTO's owners selling more than $1 million. So this is an article where a Clementi 4-room HDB flat has sold for $1.28 million. So using this case study, I went to find out actually during day one how much was the BTO price. So they bought from as low as $480,000 to as high as $620,000. So we can roughly gauge the cash proceeds is about $600,000 just cash. And this is a very, very simple math. I'm not even calculating like interest, pay, everything, like just paper profit. And we look over here, the cash total needed is just $420,000. This is not even including any potential pay increment or more CPF savings that they have. I'm just using the cash differences. Easily, this HDB upgrader can afford a $2.5 million just by selling their HDB for $1 million. They can consider to upgrade without topping up much cash here. So this is a very, very strong case, and that's why I think our condo prices have been steadily increasing, because as long as the upgraders can afford easily without much cash outlay, they will consider to upgrade, and that's how the prices will affect each other and continue to climb. Next group of people will be the condo upgraders. So since I talked about Clementi of the BTOs, now I'm talking about Parc Clematis, also in Clementi. I'm talking only about 2-bedroom. The profit we are seeing here is about $364,000 to $434,000 in terms of profit. Once again, easily they can afford to upgrade, cash out from Parc Clematis 2-bedroom and afford a $2.5 million property. So what are the $2.5 million property people can consider in this market? Firstly, we have once again Bloomsbury Residences, a 3-bedroom. So for example, Parc Clematis 2-bedroom is OCR area. If they want to upgrade in terms of size, they want to upgrade in terms of location, because this is in the RCR region, they can. And Bloomsbury is at a sweet spot of less than $2.5 million, and you have a good 3-bedroom layout with even a yard and also windows in the kitchen, plus a WC, plus a home shelter, which I think is pretty solid. So at this price point, it is very attractive in my opinion. Of course, the only downside is there's no MRT very nearby, but it's still in the RCR area and it has the size that you need. Next, if you want to go further and you want a bigger layout, you can consider the 4-bedroom. Canberra Crescent 4-bedroom is at 1216 square feet at $2.4 million. This is once again below the $2.5 million threshold, and the layout is also very nice. I like it. I love landscape layouts, living dining back to back, which means when you stand over here, the whole unit is very bright. The kitchen, I think these are glass, so kitchen will be also very bright. So this layout I think is perfect. Of course, once again, you need to be okay with Canberra, but if you're just looking from an investment play, I do think this is still quite attractive for the upgraders in the area. Then, our last category, the $3 million mark. How do we finance a $3 million property? So who are the people that might be considering a $3 million property? Maybe you are about 40 years old, combined income $22,000, so each person may be earning about $11,000. The down payment for this, of course, is not going to be too low. It's at $870,000. You may just wonder, who is going to afford this $870,000? Don't worry, I'm going to share with you who are the people who can afford this. Because these people are a bit older, I'm assuming their CPF OA has a bit more savings, about $200,000 each. Then your cash outlay is about $470,000. If you look right here, actually not too bad, because they are just a bit more than the $2.5 million mark actually. But one thing to take note is that because they are a bit older, loan will also be a factor. Because past 35 years old, the loan tenure will not be 30 years anymore, because the max age that we can take the loan will be at age 65 or max 30 years loan tenure, so whichever shorter. 35 years old will be the crossroad where you can get the max 30 years loan. Beyond that, your loan tenure will drop. But of course, beyond 35 years old, I still think that there is still room for promotion, pay bump and things like that, so people can still afford. But it is like maybe after 45 years old where your career starts to stagnate and you don't get the pay bump that you need, yet the loan tenure is dropping, then your overall loan amount granted to you will drop as well. So that's something to think about. If you are planning your upgrading route, you need to take into account your career progression, how much you're earning right now. Do you think that you will likely have a huge pay increment beyond age 35? If you do, not to worry. If you are like me, I'm self-employed, right? Beyond 35 years old, I think my income is going to be about the same. Then I need to start planning early, because the longer I wait, the harder it is for me to go to afford a bigger loan amount. So coming back to the monthly loan payment needed, as I mentioned earlier, at the start, monthly installment very cheap, $630, and you're going to save quite a bit of your monthly CPF OA, about $2,500 over here. One thing to take note, because they are 40 years old, the CPF OA amount will also drop. So if you look into CPF guidelines below 35 years old, you will have a larger proportion of your CPF contribution going to your OA. As you get older, that ratio will change, because CPF feels that you need to have more money going to your SA and MediSave, and that's when your OA will take a step back. So that's something to take note when you are looking to plan your property journey. The earlier you come in, the easier it is going to be financing in terms of the monthly installment point of view. So as we continue in terms of monthly installment, once again, as the monthly installment increase, then the surplus going into your OA will decrease. So this is a bit faster at TOP stage, then the cash top-up will come in. So this is a first case study where there will be cash top-up at only the TOP phase. And it's at $4,400, so about $2,200 per person. If they're earning about $11,000 each, I think this is something they can still easily afford. Of course, come CSC 6 months to 1 year after TOP, when a developer calls for the remaining payment, then the cash top-up will be about $6,200, which is a bit more significant. Each person about $3,100. So there's something for you to consider. Of course, it's your choice whether you want to finance this, but I'm just going to show you how the math breaks down and whether that is something that you want to consider at all. Then, who are the people who can afford a $3 million down payment, so to speak? I found the Peak at Toa Payoh. This is one of the best selling, or rather the highest resale HDB prices transacted in Singapore, and they bought only about $540,000 to close to $700,000 from HDB, yet they sold as high as $1.6 million. I'm not going to take the record price, I'm just going to take the average price, which is about $1.4 million. As you can see, it's easily a double over here. And these are the prices from HDB website. So based on the paper profits itself, the cash proceed is roughly $780,000. So just now I mentioned $870,000 down payment, yet here you can afford a $780,000. So actually very close, including your CPF OA savings. Easily these people can afford a $3 million property just by selling at 1.4, so they can double in terms of the affordability as well easily. Next group of people, the condo upgraders. For example, you're someone who bought key residence during the COVID period, you bought a 3-bedroom, your profit on average is about $450,000, and this is just pure cash, including your CPF savings and things like that. You can also upgrade to a $3 million property. Maybe this one might be a bit harder. If you are someone close to the $600,000-$500,000 range, might be easier for you to upgrade. But there are a lot of factors that can affect affordability. Maybe because you save a lot of money, you can also use those savings to finance your next property. But let's say you don't want to use so much of a savings, then from this 450k to go to the 800+k might be a bit of a stretch. But if your OA has enough sufficient savings, because I mentioned 200k each, right, of CPF savings, you add additional 400k, it's about 850k OA, which is very close to what is the down payment required at this price point as well. Then at this price point, what can we buy into this market? Promenade Peak 3-bedroom, about $3 million, 1033 square feet. This is a pretty decent layout, 3 full bedrooms, enclosed kitchen with a window, just that the common toilet does not have a window, but the master bath, it comes with a window. If you like staying in the core central region, you don't want to compromise in terms of space, it's still a big size unit, 1,000 square feet. So for example, key residence, you bought a 3-bedroom, but that was RCR area, not near MRT. Today you can sell key residence and buy Promenade Peak, which is near Great Wall MRT, Great Wall City. This is technically still within rest of central region, but I would say it's almost core central region already. You can still upgrade your lifestyle in this way, not compromising your space, but upgrading your lifestyle and also location. If you want even bigger, you can consider Parktown Residence, 4-bedroom. There's not much stocks over here. This is at Tampines. Of course, you'll be like, nee, doesn't make sense lah. This person from Key is at Clementi leh. Will they move into Tampines? Of course, these are just examples to show you what the available products. It might not be for the specific person, but you get what I mean lah, huh? Tampines, $3.046 million. Very big size, 1335 square feet. Big living, big dining. Everything is very nice. This is at $3 million. If you want bigger, we have the very popular Springleaf Residence that was just recently launched. You can watch my video up here if you haven't. I talked about how successful it was and why I thought it was very successful. For the 5-bedroom, there is still available units at $3.1 million thereabout, and this 5-bedroom is a very rare product because in this vicinity only this and I think Lentor Mansion has a 5-bedroom. So I mean, in Singapore, not many 5-bedrooms are available in Singapore. So if you need a 5-bedroom, this is something you can consider, and this price point I think is quite attractive. So I've come to the end of today's video. I hope this helped to shed some light as to how to afford a new launches, if especially you have friends and family left and right telling you that, oh, they just bought this, they just went to that launch and they bought something. Then you'll be freaking thinking, hey, that's my colleague, man. They earn the same money as I do, but how did they manage to afford? And that's something that you have been wondering. If they can afford, likely, can you afford that? So hopefully today's video helped to answer some of these questions. Of course, all the case studies I've mentioned, these are just examples, may not be really your scenarios. If you have any questions, feel free to leave your question down in the comment section down below, or just reach directly to WhatsApp me. I'll even appreciate that better. But if not, I really want to hear your thoughts. Do you think that prices have really gone out of hand? Do you think it's very difficult to afford a new launch? Do you think it's just not realistic to buy a new launch in today's market? Let me know your thoughts down below. I'll really read all the comments down below. If not, I'll see you in the next one.